Welcome to the new segment. Effective termination procedure will best help to protect against malicious activity by a former employee. When an employee leaves an organization, the former employee may attempt to use their credential to perform unauthorized or malicious activity. Accordingly, it is important to ensure timely revocation of all access at the time an individual is terminated. The security administrator should be responsible for enforcing access rights to application data. As custodian, security administrators are responsible for enforcing access right to the data. The requirement for due diligence is most closely associated with appropriate standard of care. The standard of care is most closely related to due diligence. It is based on the legal notion of the step that will be taken by a person of similar competency in similar circumstances. To ensure that the contract personnel do not obtain unauthorized access to sensitive information, it is best to avoid granting contract personnel a system administration role. Contract personnel should not be given job duties that provide them with power user or other administrative role that they could then use to grant themselves access to sensitive files. The security controls that addresses availability is contingency planning. Contingency planning ensures that the system and data are available in the event of a problem. In a social engineering scenario, the most likely program that will reduce the likelihood of an authorized individual gaining access to computing resources is by conducting periodic security awareness program. Social engineering can best be mitigated through periodic security awareness training for users who may be the target of such an attempt. The advantage of sending messages using stenographic technique as opposed to using encryption is that the existence of message is unknown. The existence of message is hidden in another file, such as JPEG image when using steganography. The best to ensure that modification made to in-house developed business application do not introduce new security exposures in the application of change management. Change management control the process of introducing changes to system to ensure that unintended changes are not introduced. Within change management, regression testing is specifically designed to prevent the introduction of new security exposure when making modification. When organizations implement an enterprise resource planning system used by many employees for various departments, the best access control approach that is most appropriate is role-based. Role-based access control is effective and efficient in large user community because it controls system access by the role defined for group of users. Users are assigned to the various roles and the system controls the access based on those roles. When an organization has decided to outsource the majority of the IT department function with a vendor that is hosting server in a foreign country, the most critical security consideration is laws and regulation of the hosting country that may not be enforceable in the foreign country. A company is held to the local laws and regulation of the country in which company reside, even if the company decide to place server with a vendor that has the server in a foreign country. A potential violation of local laws applicable to the company might not be recognized or rectified due to the lack of knowledge of the local laws that are applicable and the inability to enforce the law. The use of public key encryption for the purpose of providing encryption key between many individuals is preferred primarily because scaling is less of a problem than using a symmetrical key. Symmetrical or secret key encryption require a key for each pair of individuals who wish to have confidential communication, resulting in an exponential increase in the number of keys, resulting in tractable distribution and storage problems. The most important guidelines when using software to scan for security exposure and vulnerability within a corporate network is that do not interrupt production processes. The first rule of scanning for security exposure is to not break anything. This includes the interruption and running production processes. The best way to erase confidential information stored on magnetic tape is by degaussing them. Degaussing the magnetic tape will quickly dispose of all information because the magnetic domain are thoroughly scrambled and will not allow reuse. The main advantage of implementing automated password synchronization is that it reduces overall administrative workload. Automated password synchronization reduces the overall administrative workload of resetting password. The most important consideration when securing customer credit card acquired by a point of sales cash register is encryption. Card holder data should be encrypted using strong encryption technique. The best group that are in position to advocate the development of and ensure the success of our information security program are steering committee. Senior management represented in security steering committee is in the best position to advocate the establishment of and continue support for an information security program. When a newly installed system for synchronizing password across multiple systems and platforms abnormally terminates without warning, the access control should fall back to non-synchronized mode. The best mechanism is for the system to fall back to the original process of logging on individually to each system. The best approach for improving the information security management process is define and monitor security metrics. Defining and monitoring security metrics is a good approach to analyze the performance of the security management process, since it determines the baseline and evaluate the performance against the baseline to identify an opportunity for improvement. This is a systematic and structured approach to process improvement. The most effective activity for developing a data classification schema is building awareness of the benefit of data classification. While developing a data classification schema, it is most important that all users are made aware of the need for accurate data classification to reduce the cost of overprotection and the risk of underprotection of information assets. The most cost-effective type of access control is role-based. Role-based access control allows users to be grouped into job-related categories, which significantly ease the required administrative overhead because in most organizations there are fewer roles than employees and roles change far less frequently. To guarantee that data in a file have not changed is by creating a hash of the file. Then comparing the file hashes, a hashing algorithm can be used to mathematically ensure that data have not been changed by hashing a file and comparing the hashes after a suspected change. The best way to ensure data protection upon termination of employment is to ensure that all logical access is removed. Ensuring that all logical access is removed will guarantee that the former employee will not be able to access company data and that the employee's credential will not be misused. When an account with full administrative privileges over a production time is found to be accessible by a member of the software development team and the account is set up to allow the developer to download non-sensitive production data for software testing purpose, the information security manager should just restrict the account access to read only. Administrative accounts have permission to change data. This is not required for developer to perform their task. Unauthorized change will damage the integrity of the data. Diverting incoming traffic as a response to a denial of service attack is an example of a corrective control. Diverting incoming traffic helps correct the situation and therefore is a corrective control. The use of Wi-Fi protected access protocol mechanism is the most secure way to implement a secure wireless network. Wi-Fi protected access WPA2 is currently one of the most secure authentication and encryption protocol for mainstream wireless products. Access control and encryption algorithms are chosen during system design and specification phase of the system development lifecycle. The system specification phase is when security specifications are identified.